everyone. We are here to make sure that everybody can hear us. We are live on Facebook in the group. Welcome, sisters in Trust Your Healing Gifts community. I am coming here to you with a very special guest and colleague of mine, Robin Smith. And I'm coming with this beautiful conversation that we're about to have about relationships and the power of communication. And how can we really, I find it to be at the core of us really enjoying life and trusting ourselves and trusting others, that we can truly open our hearts and have difficult conversations and know that we are capable of expressing our truths and also being open to for others to express their truths. So I'm super grateful and excited to have this very potent conversation with Robin, who is an award-winning speaker, a leading trauma and relationship coach for women, and a founder of the Rock Your Relationship movement. Robin has done her own deep inner work that led her through all kinds of ups and downs, and now being in the 22-year relationship with her husband. They moved from the US to Costa Rica several years ago, and that's not an easy thing to do, and build a home together and created a new life together in Costa Rica. And I feel like that's the testament, one of the biggest testaments of your work and what you've done for yourself, and lead so many thousands of women in learning how to have those deep, meaningful relationships that make life more wonderful in every area of life. So Robin leads special courses. We'll talk a little bit more later. And she helps women and couples transform from frustrated to fulfilling by creating deeper, loving, and conscious connections for greater life satisfaction and happiness. Robin helps her clients unwind the layers of complex trauma and dysfunctional patterns that have interfered with their ability to enjoy ease and harmony in their relationships and a relationship with their own selves, so they can feel connected, happy, and whole. Welcome, Robin. Thank you for doing this deep, powerful work with yourself and helping so many women in your world.
Well, it's a pleasure, Yulia. Thanks for having me. And I'm really happy to be here in your community and sharing a little bit about communication today.
Yeah, so I'd like to start with, what do you find? Why is it, what becomes possible for women when they have good communication in their relationships? And why is it so important?
Yes. Communication, as you've already shared, is such a, the verbal communication is such an important way that we use to connect to others. And connection is our birthright. Intimacy and relationship and close connection is our human birthright. And yet so often we have trauma and other things that happen to us where we feel like, we don't have it. We don't know how to find it. We feel alone. We isolate ourselves. So, and sometimes it's the communication that's in the way. We don't know how to communicate what we need to say, or when we do, we feel like we're pushing people away. So communication can be a real key to just have some basic skills for how to make this kind of connection we're longing for. And what's possible when you do that is beautiful things. So you get that deep connection, that feeling of you're with me, you get me. I think everybody wants that. And that feeling of being seen and heard and understood. That's kind of eludes a lot of us because we're like, we don't get each other a lot, and it can be frustrating. You also get to feel like that we're on the same team. So that togetherness feeling of like, we're doing this thing, we're figuring it out, even if we don't always agree, we're doing it. And the communication helps you get that. Like, let's work it out, let's fix this, let's, solve whatever is in the way of the connection. The other thing that I love about, healthy communication, which I didn't always have, by the way, like I had to study this stuff and, learn it because I didn't get it in my growing up, and neither did hardly anyone I know. Most people are like wondering how the heck they're supposed to communicate because they weren't trained and they weren't taught in school or anything. But when you have it, you get a feeling of support too. And that's so important to feel like your person or your people really support who you are and how you want to be in the world. And you also, last thing is you get to feel more relaxed, because when you just know you're being heard and understood, you don't have to work so hard to get it. So many people feel incredibly frustrated or like giving up because they're just constantly not feeling heard and understood. So it's so nice to, you get me, okay, and then we can talk about other things that matter instead of trying to get understood. Yeah.
Yes, I'm like just listening to you express this. I feel like, wow, that feeling of relaxation, that it's the path of least resistance when the communication is clear and open and loving. Like there is ease in life. Life is more like a flow rather than a struggle to be understood and heard and fighting for yeah.
Exactly.
I can say so much about this also. Growing up not being modeled that it takes learning. Being modeled, I think most of us were modeled what normal is fighting and being at odds with each other in like a tug of war.
Yeah.
That's where it's all over.
Yeah, it's very stressful to be in that. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think what you see in your clients and in women you work with, what are the biggest pitfalls that you observe that women?
No, you've just spoken to some of those arguments, it's this kind of power struggles are common. I want to be right. No, I want to be right. But the top three that I find, and these are connected to what we've just been saying about arguments and power struggles, is blame, criticism, and defensiveness. And this is so common. I mean, in my household, it was always like, who didn't turn the lights off? Who left the food out? Who this? And so always looking for the source of the problem, right? And the problem with blame is that when you feel that energy of someone like pointing the finger at you or energetically, making you at fault, it doesn't feel good. And then you automatically want to defend yourself. Defensiveness is kind of a normal human response to feeling attacked or unsafe. And so you're likely to just be like, it wasn't me, or I didn't do it, or I don't know what happened, or they did it, or you did it, and you attack back. So it's just likely to lead to more divisiveness, more separation in a relationship, when if you're wanting that connection, it's going the opposite way.
Yes.
So that's blame. And then criticism, the second one, is really similar, really. It's sort of still like a pointing at somebody and saying something bad about them, but you're saying more with criticism. You're saying something demeaning about who they are, their character, their personality. So like, you're such an idiot, or how could you do that? What were you thinking? You're so mean, you're so rude, those types of things. So that can be hurtful. And so once again, if you get criticized, you're likely to criticize back or defend yourself in some other way. Again, creating more distance in the relationship. And with the pain, there becomes like a feeling with the hurt and the outcome of that often is like lack of trust, lack of safety. So then it can be harder to come back together when you've been hurt like that. Yeah. So that's criticism. Third one, defensiveness. So we've mentioned that already. You defend to protect yourself. And defensiveness really is just like I'm putting up a wall. You can't hurt me, or I'm going to hurt you back, or I'm going to leave so you can't get me. So there's any kind of defensiveness is going to be like pushing somebody away or pushing yourself away or creating some kind of distance. So again, we don't have to be hard on ourselves if we're doing these things, because we've probably all learned it from our family of origin or our culture or other kids. And it's really normal again to want to protect yourself with defensiveness, but it really creates distance. So we want to learn other ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a energetical trauma healer, I can, it shows up. Of course, you have that background of as a trauma
Mm-hmm.
specialist, you know, like how it actually shows up in the body as a armor. There isn't, like you
Yeah.
talked about that wall, right?
Yeah.
Of defensiveness, but in the body, it doesn't feel good. In the body,
Mm-hmm.
there is a block, there is a hardening around the heart, and literally it's their energetical block that create that defensiveness.
Yeah. 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 Tension in the muscles and
The
yeah, any
breathing
kind
is
of
as a breath therapist, like I know it's all shows up in the breath. The breath
yeah.
is no longer easeful and full and deep.
Mm-hmm.
That, yeah.
Yeah.
So would you share, Robin? Of course, you have like a whole training and long immersions where you help women to break through these patterns of blame, criticism, and
Yeah.
defensiveness. What would be the first steps in this conversation? The first 3 tips that you could offer to women who
Yeah.
are watching here?
Yeah. 3 tips. I have, like you said, I've got a lot of tips I could give, but I'm going to give my kind of foundational tips for setting the stage for a healthy conversation that a lot of us don't think about as a communication tool, but it is. So the first one is eye contact, which we're doing our best with here on the Zoom and cameras and stuff. But it's really important and underlooked sometimes because we're so used to now, just like, yeah, I'm listening to you. Yeah, I heard what you said. Yes, I'm paying attention. But you're on your phone or you're driving the car or you're having 2 conversations or whatever you're doing. So we feel it in our nervous system. We feel it in our connection when someone's not looking at us and giving us that feeling of, I see you, I'm with you, I'm listening. So the eye contact conveys so much when we have it. It really says all those things. I'm following you, and your nodding of your head right now is an additional like, yes, I'm following, I get you, and that helps me to know, okay, she's with me, she's understanding. So I get a little more relaxed. I don't have to work so hard. So these are important pieces, and you can't offer that when you're looking the other way. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So eye contact is key again for having the conversation feel more connected, for getting the feeling of heard and more likely to get understood. And just a little caveat for those of you listening who find eye contact really challenging, you are kind of scared or threatened by it, you want to look around, you want to look at the floor, just know that that's okay. Like if that's happening for you and it's hard to make eye contact, then it may be from early trauma. That's in my training, that's what I learned, that the earliest trauma can create this like discomfort with that kind of intense connection. So please don't give yourself a hard time if that's you. And please know that as you do the deeper work, it will probably get easier to make the eye contact. And so in the meantime, if you are comfortable saying something like, I want to look at you, but it's a little hard for me, or something like that, it can set the other person at ease if they're trying to make eye contact with you and you aren't able to do that. Or if you're on the receiving end with somebody who has that trouble, you can say, I love when you look at me, and I know it might be hard for you, but once in a while, if you can look at me, it really makes me feel good. Something like that. Those are some suggestions around that. So we can move on. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you're like give such practical like statements that you can offer, being self-responsible, like taking ownership of your experience, expressing your own experience without, again, not falling into blame, shame,
Criticizing.
right?
Exactly.
Just being honest with how you are and expressing.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So
the first one, it's the eye contact. What are the
first one is eye contact?
What's the second tip?
Second one is consent. And consent is a cool buzzword we're having these last few years. So that's wonderful, because consent is sort of like asking for permission, asking for someone's availability. So when you ask for consent, you're sort of saying, hey, like, especially, and I'm pointing to like to set the tone for a conversation that's really important to you. I don't mean for any time you want to say anything, but when you want to have an important, meaningful conversation, it really helps to get the other person's consent for their availability for that. So you want the eye contact, if you want them to be available physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically, which could mean physically, they're in the room, they're able to look at you, they're not like starving, their body can be here in the space, they're not falling asleep on you. Mentally, their mind is here, they're not, having a million thoughts about some project they were just working on. Emotionally, they're able to pay attention emotionally because they're not already angered, already like weeping or something. So they're available emotionally, they're clear, they're able to give you their attention emotionally. Energetically, again, might just be like those things that we've been talking about, mentally, physically, your body, you feel here, you feel able to like sit and pay attention. So when you get that, when you ask for that, which might look like, hey, I want to have this conversation, I probably want 30 minutes. It's really important to me. I'd love to have you like fully available. Is there a time that feels good to you? Could you meet tonight at 8? If not tonight, how about tomorrow? So you negotiate a little bit about when you can have that, and the conversation will go so much better than if they're walking in the door off of a hard day at work and you're like, hey, we got to talk, and because I've seen that many times with couples, and somebody's home all day and the other person's just getting back from work and they're like, I just need to lie down, I need to put up my feet and grab a beer, or I need some space. And they get bombarded with their partner who needs something, and it's too much energetically. They're like, I'm not here, right? I just need to like get here first. So respecting someone's need for space, and respecting that they may have other stuff going on internally that you can't see, and asking for their full availability is going to give both of you the best chances of making a sweeter connection and a more productive conversation.
So good. I just got a huge insight from this. I've had many conversations with women about who were considering joining some of my programs, and the big challenge was that they couldn't get their husband to actually have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
Now this is what it takes actually, to ask, to have the consent, to have that conversation.
And to advocate for yourself, like, this is really important to me. I would really appreciate if I could have 30 minutes of your time. When can we do that? Yeah. Yeah. So important.
Yeah, so important. Yeah, huge. I'm just getting really inspired. Also for my own coaching, how to coach others to advocate for themselves, and how to ask for it in a way that doesn't create defensiveness in the partner, another person.
Yeah. That's exactly what we're doing in my training, which we'll talk about in a minute. Yeah.
What is the third? Do you want to talk about the third?
Yeah, let's go into the third one. Yeah. So you're already doing some of this. It's reflective listening, where you hear something and then you repeat, oh, I think I heard this back. So you've been repeating a little bit of what you hear, and that helps me know again, okay, she's following, she's getting me. So reflective listening is a beautiful practice that we don't often think about with communication, because it's the receiving part of it, but then it's communicating back, right? So you're listening, and then you're sharing a little bit of what you heard, maybe a little summary of what somebody said. So again, they're knowing, okay, you're following me. I know you're with me, and it will help you to track. You're tracking the person. It will help them to feel that with you. And also it can help avoid like a misunderstanding, because sometimes you say, oh, is this what you're saying? And they're like, no, it's not at all what I said. Let me say it differently. Or so, yeah, when you do that once in a while, you can avoid like a situation my client just told me about, where her partner was responsible for maybe one of the vehicles, and he said, you need to wash the car tonight. And she was like, what? I'm not washing that. It's your car to wash. And he said, I need to wash the car tonight. So she just completely did not hear the subject of the sentence. It was I, and she had a big reaction. So sometimes that just checking, did you say I need to wash it, can really help avoid these, reactionary moments and getting,
Mm,
upset and then getting defensive and accusing somebody or criticizing or whatever might follow all that.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. Reflecting, listening. So it an opportunity to clarify, just like I'm doing right now with you. You just shared, and I reflect to you to make sure
Yeah,
that because what you shared is output, and but what's input, I have my senses, I have my
that's right.
bias. I might hear things completely different from the way that you are delivering. And that's an opportunity to like go back and forth and make sure that what
Yeah.
you shared energetically, the idea that you shared emotionally, that actually what it is. And that
Actually, that you heard what I said. Yeah,
heard what you
that's
said.
right. That there's no added interpretation.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
So Robin, I know you have this amazing free communication training coming up. Can you share more about it? What it
Yes,
is, who
I
it's
would be
for,
happy to.
what women will receive by joining it.
Yeah, so it is a free communication training. I call it the Rock Your Relationship Communication Training because it really can rock your world in the most wonderful of ways. Because what I'm doing is it's 4 days and it starts next week. And I'm giving people solid communication tools every day, one or two tools a day that I'm asking you to go practice in your relationship. Whether you're with a partner or not, you might practice it with a kid, a parent, a coworker, a friend, or your partner, and come back into the group and share about how it went, ask your questions, learn from the other women. So it's a collective learning experience where we learn from each other. And of course, I am giving a ton of tools and I'm helping you. I'm giving some coaching for free in the training around, difficult situations. And people are going to learn how to get heard and, how to say the things so that you more likely are going to be heard beyond what we're talking about today, like the actual what to say, how to say it, and how to get more understood, how to avoid those misunderstandings, how to avoid triggering someone's defensive response, what we were talking about a little bit ago, like how to say it in a way that they're not likely to get triggered. I can't guarantee people won't get triggered. Everybody has their triggers, but we're going to do our very best to avoid that with these tools, and then how to stay out of conflict, and ultimately, and last but not least, how to create a sweeter, deeper connection with people, with those you care about, your partner or whoever else is important to you. So all of that is free in this 4-day training with a couple bonus classes and some free coaching on the side. So, and it is for women, and again, you don't have to be in an intimate relationship to join the training.
Amazing. This feels like a communication boot camp where, and it's also like in the community. I think it's so important that it's done with community and also
Yeah.
having homework to go and really apply it in the real relationships and then come back and get more of your
Right.
support. This is
Yes.
amazing. What you're offering is so inspiring and beautiful,
Mhm.
important.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, women tell me all the time, like communication is such a challenge. So that's why I'm offering this, because I know so many people need it and are struggling to get heard and understood and to stay out of arguments. It's really one of the common struggles in relationships and intimate relationships, especially where we're triggering each other more easily than in other relationships. So yeah, I hope you come if you're listening, and bring a friend, tell your friends. It's really full, and women have gotten big changes just in the short training within a week of time, 4 or 5 days, even on the second or third day, they're like, oh my God, my teenage daughter finally heard me and stopped what she was doing and listened to me. And my husband gave me a hug and he said, I'm getting you, I hear what you need. So big stuff can happen, especially when you're implementing these tools I'm giving you and you're getting the support of the other women. So it feels very supportive, and that's the container that I create in the group. So a lot of safety, so you can share. You're not required to share if you don't want to, but I'm inviting people's open sharing and learning from one another, because some of the questions you may not have thought of were like exactly what you needed to hear when someone else asked it.
Yeah.
So it's a fun learning environment.
It feels like such a permission giving to go into these topics and
Yeah.
normalizing that we all have communication difficulties, and it takes skills
Yes.
and an expert like you to hold that space for us to
Mm,
expand and grow
mm.
in our ability to communicate
Yeah, thank
lovingly,
you.
clearly, and authentically.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, the
that
authentic
creates
piece is
connection.
key.
That creates
That,
that
yes.
creates deeper
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we all long for, and we just simply don't have the tools for it, so we just need to get trained up, and then good things can happen. You can actually finally feel like, I know how to say this without triggering him. I know how to like skirt that argument that I know might happen if I just do it a little differently this time. So yeah, so it can save your relationship or help you in your next one, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the link right here in the video underneath our interview, so you can everybody can go ahead and schedule and register.
Yes. Yeah. Click that link and it'll take you to my page where you can sign up for the free training.
Beautiful, Robin. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for what you do and for your passion and letting your own relationship be that playground and go deeper and deeper,
Mhm.
so you can offer
Yeah.
what you've learned for yourself to other women.
Thank you. Yeah. It's my pleasure. I love offering this. Thank you so much for having me, Yulia. Appreciate your welcoming, warm, and open heart, and just very generous offer to have me here and share me with your community. So I hope to meet some of you in the training.
Beautiful. Thank you, Robin. I'm gonna stop here. Bye, everyone. Oh, I did it in the wrong.